"He hit my grandma," the child cried, and the bikers stopped as one, their engines falling silent like thunder dying in the distance. What happened next would shake an entire neighborhood, because sometimes the loudest hearts come from the unlikeliest people. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for the helpless, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. The sun was still high when the convoy of motorcycles rolled down the peaceful suburban street. Chrome glinted, engines rumbled, and leather vests embroidered with angel wings moved as one. To many, they looked intimidating, but to those who knew them, they were protectors. Men who had lived rough lives and came out determined to use their strength for something better. Their leader, a heavily tattooed man named Riker, slowed as he noticed a small boy standing at the curb. The child clutched a worn-out teddy bear, his face wet with tears that kept falling no matter how many times he wiped them away. Something about the boy's trembling shoulders made Riker lift his hand, signaling the group to halt. Riker approached slowly, lowering himself to the little boy's eye level, careful not to scare him. The child looked no older than 7. He wore a red hoodie, its sleeves frayed from nervous fingers tugging at them. His eyes were swollen, his small chest heaving as though it hurt simply to breathe. Riker asked what was wrong, and that was when the little boy choked out the words that pierced even the hardest hearts. "He hit my grandma." He pointed toward a small house across the yard where an elderly woman sat on the concrete steps, one hand gripping her chest, the other holding her cheek where a bruise had begun to bloom. Standing behind her in the doorway was a man with a bottle dangling loosely from his fingers, staring at the scene with a scowl of irritation, not guilt. The entire biker crew watched the sight unfold, every jaw clenched, every muscle tensed. They knew the look of a bully, the posture of a man who thought he could break others because he was hurting inside. They had seen men like him countless times in their past lives and spent years trying to unlearn what he still embraced. Something about the sight of the elderly woman and the crying boy ignited the fire in their chests. Riker stepped back and scanned the crew. No words were needed. They understood. The boy's grandmother was shaking, though she tried to hide it, whispering to the child that everything would be okay. But her voice broke, betraying her pain. Riker knelt beside her and gently asked if she was hurt. She nodded, her eyes glistening with a mixture of humiliation and relief. Humiliation from the blow, relief that someone had finally shown up who cared. She kept apologizing, saying she didn't want trouble, that her daughter and grandson lived with the man because they had nowhere else to go. Riker's heart twisted at her words. He had grown up watching his own mother hide bruises with sweaters and lies. He remembered being a little boy who wished someone, anyone, would show up and say, "No more." The man in the doorway shifted, his grip tightening on the bottle as he barked that the bikers should leave. But they didn't move. Riker stood up slowly, towering over the small porch. The rest of the crew spread out behind him like a wall of steel and resolve. They didn't raise fists or weapons. They didn't need to. Sometimes the strongest force in the world is simply a group of people refusing to look away. The boy clutched Riker's vest, begging him not to let the man hurt his grandmother again. His tiny voice cracked in desperation, and that was the breaking point. Riker told the man firmly that enough was enough, that no one would lay a hand on the boy or his grandmother again. The man's bravado faltered. He felt the weight of dozens of experienced, unyielding eyes drilling through him. Men who had lived violence and knew exactly how to stop it. But instead of charging him or yelling, Riker did something unexpected, something that stunned even his crew. He spoke calmly, his voice steady, telling the man that he still had a choice in that moment. He could keep going down a path that destroyed everything around him, or he could step away from the house until help arrived. He could choose to break the cycle instead of feeding it. The man's anger trembled. Shame crept into his expression. He glanced between the injured woman, the terrified child, and the bikers blocking every escape but one, the choice to stop. And slowly, silently, he lowered the bottle. He didn't apologize, but he stepped away from the doorway, mumbling that he needed air and walked toward the street. The grandmother began to sob quietly, not from fear this time, but from release. Riker called paramedics, knowing she needed to be checked. Another crew member contacted local authorities they worked with in community programs. The boy stayed by his grandmother's side, holding her hand, holding the teddy bear, holding onto the hope that maybe, just maybe, the hurting would stop. As the sirens approached, the bikers remained with the family, creating a protective circle of presence and compassion. Neighbors peeked from their windows, shocked to see rough-looking men handling the moment with more care than anyone else had. Some even stepped outside, offering blankets, water, words of support. A community began to awaken. The grandmother thanked the bikers through tears, saying she didn't know how to repay them. Riker shook his head gently. He told her that she already had, that her strength to protect her grandson was worth more than anything. And as the little boy hugged him tightly, Riker felt something he hadn't felt in years, the pure, quiet redemption of choosing to be better. If this story touched your heart in any way, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to help spread more real, emotional stories that remind us humanity is still alive.